blustery day, cold drink, incongruity. It's a vibe. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and as always, I hope you are as well. Here I am in my new spot. You're probably wondering, where are you? I have moved. We have settled in for the most part. I haven't committed to where I'm going to be doing my videos. This is going to be an experiment. There's a couple of places that have potential, and I'm going to try all of them to see which ones work the best, but this is my first one. Right now I am in my bedroom. I did manage to put something familiar from my previous videos up here, even though you can't see it all. I really did want to do my moving vlog and kind of a walkthrough and kind of show you what my new space looks like, and have that up before I recorded and published any other videos. So I don't know, to make it seem a little bit more fluid, make a little bit more sense instead of bam, here's a new background, new space. But you guys get it. I mean, I've been trying to get good video for that vlog, but the weather's been weird, and rainy day is perfect day for making regular bookish videos. So that's what we're going to do today. These are all the books that made the cut, and made the move with us. There are 65 books here. And I remember a couple of months ago when my husband and I were kind of mulling over what items were going to come with us into this small space and what items were going to go to storage. And we were standing by my bookshelf that's behind me in my previous videos. I said, well, all of these are coming with me. And he laughed. I don't think at the time, well, I know for sure he did not take me seriously, but I didn't think that he didn't take me seriously. I thought he just kind of smiled, oh, my silly wife. And it got to the point where we were actually packing and putting things in a separate room for the movers to not touch. We went over to the bookshelf and he's like, well, aren't you going to put all of these in the room? And I said, no, I'm just going to tell the movers not to touch that shelf. And he's like, what do you mean not to touch the shelf? And I said, well, part of that, don't you understand? They're not touching anything on this shelf. And he's like, you're taking all of these books? And I said, yes. And he laughed, like for realsies, laughed at me like, you're crazy, woman. What ended up happening is there was a slight cull. I did kind of weed out a few, like, am I going to realistically read all of these books within the next, I don't know how many months. Now, we will be living in this fifth wheel for a minimum of 4 months. So I had to kind of make a cut based on that. It's my goal to get through these in 4 months. Can I do it? I don't know. So what I'm going to do, what's going to happen is there's going to be a pause in the video, and I'm going to take all these and dump them on the bed in front of me and talk about them one by one. I'm not going to go into too much detail about any specific one. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. And when I take all these books down, you're going to see this hideous sticker that's on this wall behind me that says, here's where you might mount your TV. Once these books come down, it's going to be a hideous background, but first world booktube troubles. Okay, total lie. So I realized once I turned around to try to unload all these books onto my bed, I'm like, no way am I dumping all 65 books at one time on my bed. No, that's not going to work out. So I'm going to do one stack at a time and then just fill it up. For the first few books I'm going to talk about books I know I've already talked about because I did a video where I talked about the books that I felt like I absolutely needed to finish by the end of the year. Because of a post I did on my Instagram, pop a picture up again here, where I did like 22 books in 2022 that I felt like I needed to read for the year. And I've gotten through most of them. I think I have about 7 left. Of course, those made the cuts because I definitely want to read those over November and December. The first is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I am giving Ruth Ware another go. She's hit or miss with me, and when I say hit or miss, I say 1 hit and so far 2 misses, 3 misses. But this one has a better rating, I think, than a couple of those other ones. I'm still hopeful, so I'm hoping to get to this one, if not November, then in December. And since we're talking about Ruth Ware, I have this one as well, The Lion Game. So I'm really hoping this one, I think, is the lowest rated on Goodreads. I try to take the Goodreads average rating with a grain of salt, but you know, I'm probably going to read Turn of the Key first, and if that one is a bust, I can make no promises. Next one that made the cut was Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I have yet to read a Murakami book. Of course, he's talked a lot about on Booktube, at least from the videos that I've watched, and I am intrigued. I've been trying to get to this book for probably over a year, which is probably why it made my 22 and 2022 list. I really, really, really want to get to this series. I haven't heard anybody say a bad word about this series, and so I'm super excited. Of course, this is the Nevermore series, The Trials of Morgan Crow, is the first one by Jessica Townsend. I should be able to get through this one pretty quickly. So that's on my TBR/hopeful list for November, December. Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. This, you know, the thing that worries me the most about this is that this little sticker right here, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. That's not necessarily a winning attribute for me. Fortunately, it's pretty slender, less than 250, I think. Yep, 245 pages. It says it's a story about fathers and sons and the spiritual battles that still rage in America's heart. It reveals the human condition and manages to convey the miracle of existence itself. So intriguing. I'm pretty sure I found this at a secondhand store. We'll see if I get to this one. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is a definite for November. This one I picked up at Heathrow Airport, and I was just so pleased because it's a paperback and it just came out. So got this one recently on my husband and I's trip to Norway, and I'm super excited to read it. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I love this cover. I picked this one up. This is The Majesties by Tiffany Sao. I hope that's the way you pronounce it. If not, I apologize. This one was a total cover pickup for me. I found this in a little free library. I'd never heard of it. I've never heard of the author, but I saw this cover and I had to have it. It's gorgeous. Spoiler alert, I am reading this right now. And the final book that was in my 22 of 2022 is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. I have yet to read a Kate Atkinson, so I'm super excited to get into this one. This, I believe, is a favorite among Kate Atkinson's fans, so I thought it was a good one to start with. All right, moving on to a few books that are new to my shelves. I did a little, I guess we're going to do a little bit of a mini haul. And I say mini haul, I bought 3 new books and I picked one up from a little free library. I didn't mean to buy new books, but in packing and organizing, I came across a gift certificate that was given to me for my birthday in August for Barnes & Noble. And I thought, well, what's the use of packing this away? I might as well just spend it and, and bring home books. And, you know, with packing and moving, you know, all the stress, and I needed a little bit of retail therapy. The new ones that I picked, super popular, Bunny by Mona Awad. I'm super intrigued by this one. And I absolutely love this cover. I think it's gorgeous. It's kind of a dark academia novel where a clique of girls, they call each other bunnies, and they're into some really dark shit. So I'm really looking forward to this. The next one I picked up, I'm super, super excited about, and that is A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. I read A Psalm for the Wild Built just based on a cover. It met a prompt for the reading challenge that I mentioned previously. I would never have picked it up otherwise, and I'm so glad I did. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Super excited to get into this one. This one I will definitely be reading in November or December. I mean, sooner rather than later. And then finally, I picked up Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. I happened to be scrolling through Instagram and I came across a video that Ann Patchett did for her bookstore, Parnassus. And she usually does like a highlight of new books that are coming to the store. And she highlighted this one, and specifically she highlighted this one because Dani Shapiro was coming to her store to give a talk, a reading, and a signing. And she talked about kind of the synopsis of this book, and it sounded intriguing. And it just so happened I watched that video like within a day of my jaunt to Barnes & Noble, and then this one was displayed. So it's a sign, right? It's a sign. On to the books that I have probably mentioned that have been on my shelf for a while. Oh, I forgot one other thing in my haul. I was checking out all the little free libraries in the area, and I had to unload the books that didn't make the cut. So I wasn't planning on picking up anything. I was just kind of doing drop off at some of the little free libraries in my new neighborhood. But I saw this one and I had to have it. It's James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. I have yet to read this, if you can believe it. I love Roald Dahl. Of course, I love Willy Wonka and a couple of his other ones. And yeah, it's just a little guy. I should be able to get through it really quickly. I love this cover too. I thought that was really a neat cover, so I had to have it. Anyways, on to the ones that have been on my shelf. So here's the rest that made the cut. We have Members Only by Samir Pandya, and I'm pretty sure this has to deal with racial tensions at a tennis club. Next, this is Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. I picked this one up when I went to kind of a Books and Brews get together several months back. I made a vlog on that. I'll link that down below. And they were giving away like one book per person. They were all proofs, which is fine. I was pretty excited to get to this one. Next is The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. This is the first in the series. Is it called it's the Cormoran Strike series. I've been meaning to get to this series for a really, really long time. I think I have the Silkworm as well. And the Silkworm, well, I guess we'll find out. I'm not sure if that made the cut, because who knows when I'm going to be able to get to this. And, you know, if I can't, I'm going to be reading them in order. Yeah, I am really into starting a detective series. It's a chunky one, so not sure if it's going to make it for this year, but it definitely made the cut. I picked up The Absolutist by John Boyne because I fell so in love with the one other book that I've read by him. No, 2 books. But The Heart's Invisible Furies is one of my favorites of the year so far. Absolutely loved it. Of course, I read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I like that one too. But once I read Invisible Furies, I knew I had to read the rest of his stuff. And this was the only one I think that I could find at the bookstore at the time by John Boyne. So I picked this one up. It sounded interesting. I guess I don't need to say this one made the cut, because all of these obviously made the cut. Get it together, Heather. Next one is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. As you all know, this is the author that wrote The Girl on the Train, which I absolutely loved. It's been sitting languishing on my shelf. It's got a sticker that I have to absolutely take off right this minute. So I know I said I take Goodreads average ratings with a grain of salt. This one is really poorly rated, and it gives me a little bit of pause, but I'm going to power through because I loved her other books so much. So we'll see. All right, let's move on to another stack. We have Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. This was a book of the month club. I didn't pick this one. I only had a book of the month club for about 6 months. It was a gift from my really good friend Selena. Oh, see that lovely sticker that I was telling you about? Isn't that just lovely? So just the very first blurb on the inside flap is, "Shouldn't a dead husband stay dead?" That's enough for me. Another one she sent me was Sweet Little Lies by Kaz Freer. I think I talked about this in a recent video. I can't remember which one. The very first blurb is a gripping mystery set in London, tick, that introduces readers to a fresh, brilliant new voice in crime fiction. Oh, is this a debut? I think it might be a debut. Yeah, detective novels, yay, tick number 1. Set in London, tick number 2. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Next one is Inside the O'Briens by Lisa Genova. I got this at a secondhand store. I picked it up because I really like this author. I read and absolutely loved Still Alice. I really, really enjoyed it. And so when I saw this, I picked it up. This one, you're following Joe O'Brien, who is a Boston police officer. Number 1, Boston's one of my favorite towns. Number 2, police officers have a special place in my heart. But he starts to suffer from Huntington's disease. And so how it affects him, how it affects his family, I think that's a fascinating premise. Next, we have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I got this one. I subscribed to a book box. I think it was called Authentic Books. but I think I only got like 1 month just because I'd never gotten a book box before or subscribed to a book box. And it came with a beautiful candle, and it came with like some tea and a couple of other really, really lovely things. It was a beautiful, beautiful box. And I just thought this cover was gorgeous. So I picked this one, and like everything in the box was labeled to kind of color match this gorgeous cover. And it was a really, really beautiful box. This book has been talked about a lot on Booktube. Most of you are aware of it. It's been languishing on my shelf for the longest time. I really want to get to it, and that's why it made the cut. Next, I have Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know I talked about this recently because I got this. Taylor Jenkins Reid came to a town close by and did an interview, a talk, and she did a book signing. This is a signed copy. Yay. Not that I'm terribly huge into autographs, but it's kind of cool to have an author sign the book that you get. This, of course, since I got it so recently and I love this author, I probably won't get to it too terribly soon just because I want to read Malibu Rising first. I know I don't have to, but I want to. I think it's a beautiful cover, and I want to read, as you'll see, a lot of my hardcovers made it because I want to get through them and them out of my library because they take too much space. Anyways, that's why this one made the cut. Next is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, this one was my husband's book. I think I recommended this to him because he's kind of into the whole fantasy, urban fantasy type thing, and he hadn't heard of Libba Bray, and so I had heard a lot just from watching a lot of Booktube. I have yet to read Libba Bray, but The Diviners is raved about, and he said he really loved it. As a matter of fact, he is halfway through the second in the series. It's the first in the series, and he's really, really enjoying it. So I kept it. I will get to this sometime. I have a few Jody Picot books that made the cut because I am slowly but surely making my way through her backlist. I've read most of her most recent ones, and I really, really love her writing, so I'm really interested to read her older one. I have a few Jody Picot. This one is Perfect Match. One of the things I love about Jody Picot is she deals with a lot of either controversial topics or hot buttons or recently relevant topics, and she creates a really compelling story surrounding that and gives it a really, really solid treatment. And I really appreciate what she does with those topics. So that's why I'm making my way through her list, and that's why all her books made the cut. So I'll just make that blanket statement about Jody Picot. Next is Tales from Watership Down. This was a gift by my husband. I did a video where I talked about how for my birthday one year, probably if not last year, it was the year before, where he had some of my best friends recommend their favorite books that they thought I would love, and then he went out and bought all those books, and it was just a lovely gift. And this was the one that he picked for me because he knows how much I loved Watership Down, and I did not know that there was a follow-up, so he really hit the mark on that one. If you haven't read Watership Down, I highly recommend it. It is so unique and just such an engaging tale about a colony of rabbits. I heard about this next book on Booktube. It just sounds really intriguing, but it has been languishing on my shelf, and that's The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep by H.G. Perry. I believe this is middle grade. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been languishing. He can bring characters from books into the real world. That's why I was intrigued. Okay, that sounds amazing. Ultimate book lover's fantasy, it says. Book lover, yes. Fantasy, we'll see. I'm having kind of a losing relationship with the fantasy genre, but I keep trying. I'm not sure why this one made the cut. This is The Innocent Man by John Grisham, and this is, I believe, a true crime story. So he usually writes, of course, legal thrillers that are fiction. I believe this one is nonfiction. This is Murder and Injustice in a Small Town. I think I just couldn't bring myself to get rid of a John Grisham book. Thankfully, I didn't have to go far for my glasses. Oh yeah, there's pictures in here, real life pictures. So looks like it is a true story. Next is Odd Hours by Dean Koontz. This is the Odd Thomas series. I want to say this is the third one, and which is why it made the cut, because I have read the first two. If it's the fourth one, it's because I read the first three. You get the picture. I definitely want to finish the series. It's a lovely series. This man, Odd Thomas, is a young man who can communicate with the dead, and he uses that ability to solve mysteries and crimes and to help people. And it's lovely. I love the series, so I will continue with it. In my guest bedroom is where I kept a very small collection of classics. I don't get to classics often. I don't have a really good time with them. I have a really hard time with them, specifically Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, the way they're written, the language of the time, I have a really hard time with. So they've been kind of ostracized away from my other books, but a few of them did make the cut because I still want to give my best effort to get through a few of them. One of them being Jane Eyre, of course, by Charlotte Bronte. Yes, I am a woman, I'm a reader, and I haven't read Jane Eyre. I have an appropriate amount of shame for that. I'll get over it. My very next classic that I read will likely be Jane Eyre. I feel like the way everybody talks about it, even the people who aren't into classics, they say that it's easier to read than your average classic, so I have hope. This one is my husband's. It's The Red Breast. The Red Breast, yes. God, what am I, 12? By Yo Nesbo. This is my husband's, but this is a Harry Hole, fucking hell, a Detective Harry Hole series, and I have read one other. I believe The Snowman was part of the series, but I don't think you have to read them in order because I think The Snowman was like number 7, but I do want to read the rest of the series. It's really, really well written. I believe it's Norwegian. Yeah, takes place in Oslo, and specifically since now I've been to Norway, I want to continue on with the series. So technically this is my husband's book, but I am enjoying the series as well. This one I picked up. This might have been part of my recent haul because I did a video recently where I did the book cover telephone tag. I'll link that down below, even though I'm pretty sure it's my most recent video before this one. This was in that tag and I didn't have it in my library yet, and I think like the next day after I filmed that video I saw this displayed at Barnes & Noble, and so I scooped it right up. So this is one of those ones that ticks all the boxes for me too, in the South, from the point of view of a tween. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I know I've talked about this one before. This is A Very Long Engagement by Sebastian Japresseau, I believe. This is translated from the French, I believe. I saw the movie and absolutely, it's like one of my favorite movies of all time, at least in the top 10. Once I discovered that, of course, it was based on a book, I had to get the book, and it has been sitting on my shelf for years. I don't know what I'm waiting for. Maybe it's because I don't want to spoil the movie that I loved so much. Who knows, but I will get to it eventually, and I couldn't bring myself to put it in storage. If you don't mind reading subtitles, I highly recommend this movie. It's just so beautiful and heartwarming and funny. Absolutely loved it. I know I've talked about this book as well. This is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. I can't remember why I picked this up. I've had it for years and I just don't remember why I picked it up. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It says, if you knew the date of your death, how would you live your life? I don't know why I haven't gotten to this yet, because I remember, the only thing I remember about it is that when I heard about it, it just sounded super intriguing. So it didn't go to storage. Finally, in this stack, another Jody Picot, and that is Vanishing Ax. Who knows when I'll get to this, but Jody Picot, it will be eventually. Let's move on to the next stack. Oh my God, this is going to be a very long video. First up is Secondhand Souls by Christopher Moore. This is the follow-up to A Dirty Job, which I read years and years ago. It's hilarious and super engaging and entertaining. And when this came out, I scooped it right up, and it's been on my shelf ever since. My husband read it, and he said it was good. He really enjoyed it. I almost feel like it's been so long since I read A Dirty Job that I want to reread that before I read this one. I'm not sure. I asked my husband if I should. I think he told me that I didn't really need to. Next is The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. This made its rounds around Booktube a few months ago. I picked this one up. This is a proof. This is the other one I picked up at the Books and Brews event that I went to. I know I said it was one book per person, so I made my husband pick one for me. I love me a good historical fiction, especially surrounding World War II. I don't know why, but that's my go-to. The Nightingale is one of my favorite books of all time. Next is The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. I can't remember if I've read any Sally Hepworth, and I can't remember why I picked this up. But it's a hardcover, and that's why it made the cut. This is another Book of the Month Club that my friend Selena sent to me. This is Girl A, also kind of talked about on Booktube. I don't think a lot of people raved about this one, but it says, you can flee your parents, you can bury your secrets, but you'll never leave behind what your siblings know, what you all shared. But it's a hardcover, so it made the cut. I've talked about this book before. This is Black and Blue by Anna Quinlan. I know why I picked this one up. I picked this one up at a secondhand store because this is an author of a book that I absolutely loved called Every Last One. Every Last One was amazing, and it was kind of a slow burn, but the end was a punch to the gut. Absolutely had to have more of this author. So that's why I picked this one up. This one, I believe, focuses on domestic violence as its topic. So this is one of those books that have like been put on my monthly TBR for a really long time, and for some reason I just never get to it. But because it's endured as far as making my TBRs every month, that's why it made the cut. Next is another Jody Picot. This one is Change of Heart. This one deals with, it says, would you give up your vengeance against someone you hate if it meant saving someone you love? So this sounds totally quintessential Jody Picot, where you are conflicted as far as which of two decisions is the right one, especially when one of them seemingly seems ethically wrong. So this one is Wouldn't You Love to Love Her by Shannon Jump. I won this one on Instagram. I did like a giveaway. My Instagram friend Kelly over at Dear Books I Love You, she did a giveaway and I won, and she sent this to me. If you don't follow Dear Books I Love You on Instagram, you're missing out. She's hilarious. She's fun. And anyways, I won this, and because it was a gift, I had to take it with me. Next is A Fall of Marigolds by Susan Meisner. I'm pretty sure this was a cover buy. I thought it was gorgeous. A beautiful scarf passed down through the generations connects two women who learn that the weight of the world is made bearable by the love we give away. Looks like it's a dual timeline. So September 1911 and September 2011 in New York City. So I'll get to that one eventually. This one was a gift from a friend way back when I lived in Guam. This is the Book of Lost and Found by Lucy Foley. Lucy Foley, as you remember, she has written Hunting Party and The Guest List. I believe that's what those are called. And I think the cover is beautiful. This one's been on my TBR forever. A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. And I know why I am dragging my feet on this one. So this is the first Jennifer... Oh, these stickers make me crazy. This is the first Jennifer Egan book that I have ever purchased, but it's not the first, obviously, the first one I read. The first one I read was, was Manhattan Beach, and I didn't get on with it. And so as excited as I was for this one, I didn't rush to it after I finished Manhattan Beach. And it's not really highly rated on Goodreads. I say I always take that with a grain of salt, but evidently I pay attention to it more than I want to. Can't remember how this one came into my possession, but this is The Child Finder by Renee Denfeld. My husband read it. He said I would like it. He really enjoyed it. So that's probably why it's still in my library. It's a gorgeous, haunting gem of a novel, as lovely and as chilling as the snow. That's really not a description, is it? It's less than 300 pages. I should get, look, that's a beautiful cover. Gorgeous. I should get to this soon. Fingers crossed. Another Jody Picot. This is Second Glance. Looks like this deals with a Native American community. A developer has slated an ancient Abenaki Indian burial ground for a strip mall, and now strange happenings have the inhabitants of tiny Comtousuk, Vermont, talking of supernatural forces at work. This is the first I've heard of Jody Picot dealing with the supernatural, so that should be interesting. I definitely have talked about this recently, if not just the author. This is Ink and Bone by Lisa Unger. 20-year-old Finley Montgomery is rarely alone, visited by people whom others can't see, and haunted by prophetic dreams she has never been able to control or understand. I think the thing that was the biggest draw for me is the relationship between a woman and her grandmother. So that intrigues me. Another classic. Found this in a secondhand store, and it's been languishing, and that's The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I think it's probably obvious by anyone who is familiar with this book why I'm dragging my feet on this one. Next is Cemetery Road by Greg Iles. This is part of a series that I absolutely love. Wait, no, this isn't part of the series. This is a standalone. But I absolutely love this author. He's an incredible writer. Most of his stuff takes place in the South, mostly Mississippi, I believe, and deals with family drama / legal thriller mystery type stuff. And he's just really, really good. Yeah, this one takes place in Bienville, Mississippi. I haven't heard of that town. I love Greg Iles. A classic that I'm really hoping to get to at Christmas time, because a lot of people who love this book read it at Christmas time, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Fingers crossed I get to it. And I think the last of the classics I brought with me is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Oh, I'm kind of dreading this, but my husband said that I would really enjoy it. This is one of the few classics that he's read, and he said that it was easier to read than a lot of other Charles Dickens ones, so that's why I brought this one along. Last stack! Okay, I lied. I said I had the Silkworm, but I actually have Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith. Is this the second one? I would hope it's the second one. It would be stupid if I had the first and the third. This is a part of the Cormoran Strike series. I don't know why I have another one if I haven't read the first one. This next one I'm pretty sure I've talked about before. This is Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. I have not read this author yet. Oh, yes, I have. I read The 13th Tale. I didn't get on with it. Don't judge me. So I'm pretty sure I picked this one up because of the cover. It's gorgeous, and that's why it's been sitting on my shelf. 3 girls are missing, 1 is returned, a story begins. And that's all I'll share with you because this video is super, super long. Next is Full Throttle by Joe Hill. This is a collection of short stories. I do love Stephen King's short stories, so I'm really hoping that these live up to those. It's a really unfair comparison, I know, but you can't help it. Looks like Netflix did. Oh, one of the stories is In the Tall Grass, which they did do on Netflix. As far as short stories go, I really like them when they're horror short stories because you can really get a good scare. Other types of short stories, I just don't think the development that you need, the character development that you need for, say, like literary short stories. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I have a hard time with short stories unless they're horror, so I'm looking forward to this one. I picked this one up because I believe I had heard that he's very similar to Carl Hiaasen. This is Florida Roadkill by Tim Dorsey. And it's just got a whole Carl Hiaasen vibe to the cover. And so I picked it up. I'm really kind of hoping for that vibe. Carl Hiaasen, I absolutely love. The stories take place in Florida. And if you've ever heard of the whole, Florida Man articles, crazy stuff goes on down there. Stuff that you don't think is real, but it is. And so there are quirky characters and just antics as far as it's typically a mystery that you're reading, but all these antics and weird characters, they're just so much fun. So I think I heard somewhere that Tim Dorsey was similar to Carl Hiaasen, and that's why I picked this one up. I feel like this is a first in a series. I could be wrong. Oh, look. So the Chicago Tribune says some of the most wacky villains and situations since Hiaasen stuck a plastic alligator down a stranger's throat and called it tourist season. Sounds like a fun ride. We're almost done, I promise. This I know I've talked about before, Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. I have been wanting to try this author. I haven't read her yet. Her, right? Yes. I picked this one up at a secondhand store. I did the independent bookstore day, and I did a vlog on that. And so this is one of the books I picked up on that day. This was a finalist for the Women's Prize for Fiction in the year that it came out, longlisted for the Penn Faulkner Award. I've been trying to get to this one for months. Really popular one on Booktube, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. The reviews on this one go back and forth. They're really, really polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's intriguing to me. I was intrigued by the cover, in addition to the stuff that I've heard about it. So this one had to come. Liane Moriarty is one of my favorite authors, so this one absolutely had to come. I don't know why I've been dragging my feet on this one. I've read many of her books. The Husband's Secret has been my favorite so far. Absolutely loved it. I will make it to this one eventually. the final Jody Picot book, and that is Picture Perfect. So it sounds like another book about domestic violence. So it'll be good to see how she treats that topic. Total cover by, and that is Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn. Absolutely stunning cover. But then when I read the back, I was intrigued as well. 1995, off the coast of Kailua Kona, Hawaii, 7-year-old Nainoa Flores falls overboard into the Pacific Ocean. When a shiver of sharks appears in the water, everyone fears the worst. But Noah is gingerly delivered to his mother in the jaws of a shark, making his story the stuff of legend. I've been trying to get to this one forever as well. Definitely made the cut. This cover cannot sit in storage. John Grisham book, The Whistler. This one basically picked up because it's John Grisham. I recently read 2 back-to-back, The Confession and The Guardians, that were 5-star reads. And I've talked about before how a lot of his books are quite formulaic, and so they can kind of get monotonous sometimes. But like I said, The Confession and The Guardians kind of breaks that mold. They were absolutely page turners, absolutely loved them. And so John Grisham does not go into storage. He came with me. This one I heard of, and I've picked up probably within the last couple of months after looking for it for the longest time, after hearing about it by Liane over at Literary Diversions. She raves about this series. This is the first in a series, the Parasol Protectorate series. This one's called Soulless by Gail Carriger. And this is, I believe, urban fantasy, which is probably one of the reasons why I've dragged my feet on it. Yeah, this was mostly peer pressure, I guess. It just sounded, when someone raves and raves and raves about a book, especially a pretty prolific reader, I get sucked in. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, looks like I've got 2 more classics. We've got The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Really don't know. From the looks of it, it looks like I picked it up at a secondhand store. It's a classic. I don't know when I'll get to it. This is the 3rd in the Jack Reacher series. This is Tripwire by Lee Child. This is the 3rd, and it made the cut because I've read the first 2. So I really love this series. It's really enjoyable. It's just kind of a fun ride. I think I have talked about the Jack Reacher series recently. You all know who Jack Reacher is, right? Last of the classics is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I think this particular classic intrigued me because it's an adventure novel. So I think this will be more engaging to me personally than your average classic. So that's why I picked this one up. I have hope for it in January because I think in January at the beginning of the year, I'm motivated to read a classic. And it's that extra motivation that I need to get through a classic. Finally, the last book that made the cut. And I'm actually super excited about it, but it's a chunker. And it is Swan Song by Robert McGammon. My favorite book of 2021 was Boy's Life by Robert McGammon. So I know I've talked about that before. And a lot of people talk about this book being compared to The Stand by Stephen King, which is a fantastic book. And a lot of people who compare the two say that this one outshines The Stand. Challenge accepted. I will be the judge of that. We'll see, because I absolutely love this author's writing. I absolutely love Boy's Life. So great. And so this one is, I believe, a post-apocalyptic story. It's a chunker though. It is, oh my gosh, it's just over 900 pages long. So this probably won't make it for 2022, but it did make the cut. Obviously. So that's it. These are the books that made the cut. What do you think? Have you read any of these? What are you excited for me to read? What do you want to hear about? Are there books that you would have me move up my TBR list? What do you think? Please feel free to comment down in the doobly-doo. What do you think of this location? How's the sound? How's the light? How do I look? I don't care. You probably don't care either. I think it works out pretty good though. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I'm sorry it's so long. I really hope you enjoy that. I mean, with books, where can you go wrong? If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.